But surprise, I have it. I have it. I want to thank the former FEMA employees that you fired who gave this to me.
Jared Moskowitz just walked into a House Judiciary hearing with a 122-page report that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem tried to bury. A report written by governors, emergency management directors, and FEMA experts, cut down to 23 pages. Tonight, he read it out loud. Watch what happens.
Madam Secretary, welcome. Good afternoon. Thomas Massie mentioned Ron DeSantis' response during COVID. Well, you're looking at the guy who ran that response. I was the Director of Emergency Management for the state of Florida. For a Republican governor, I worked with the Trump FEMA administration during the Category 5 Hurricane Michael recovery. That Trump's FEMA was great. We got expedited reimbursement, a program that you got rid of or threatened to get rid of. And the Panhandle had one of the greatest responses after that Category 5 storm. The president said he wanted to reform FEMA, but that's not what you did. You've basically destroyed the agency. Largest FEMA backlog in the history of FEMA. My state of Florida is owed $2.5 billion. You have delayed the FEMA disaster declarations even when the applicants meet FEMA's statutory threshold under the Stafford Act. You want states to do more, yet you want to cut the EMPG program, which grants them funding to build capacity. Your office was involved in discussions of moving FEMA to Texas. You created a rule of anything over $100,000 has to come to your desk, a rule that has slowed down FEMA reimbursement, FEMA response. We have empty regional offices. You have done the opposite of what President Trump wanted to accomplish, which was to speed up the process. Your policies have made the department slower. I didn't think it was possible to make FEMA more bureaucratic, but boy, you have exceeded all my expectations. In the Texas floods, you didn't put the urban search and rescue crews on the road for 72 hours. Days later, the FEMA urban search and rescue chief resigned in protest. You hired 2 people as the administrator with no FEMA experience. We're on our 3rd history of the department. Has that ever happened? The president took presidential action to create the FEMA Council. I supported it. You opposed the FEMA Council. You delayed its beginning. The report has still not come out. The White House canceled your last council meeting and has held up the release of the report. But surprise, I have it. I have it. I want to thank the former FEMA employees that you fired who gave this to me. This report's never been seen in public before, okay? But this is it. This was the report. It was 122 pages, the original draft report. You and Corey Lewandowski then took the report and made it 23 pages. You cut out all the stuff that was put in by governors who had been through disasters, emergency management directors, FEMA experts, national security experts. You cut it all out. It's all gone. That's why the report's not been released. It's sitting in the White House trying to figure out this mess that you created. So instead of getting the recommendations we need, now we have nothing. You've called Corey Lewandowski a special government employee. I understand what government means. I understand what employee means, okay? But I don't know what makes him special. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to answer on the record to Ms. Kamlager-Dove's question. I know you said it's garbage, and it may be, but I really think you need to say the word no into the record so that you can clear that up.
I think the ridiculousness of this and the tabloids that you are quoting and referencing are insane. And this has been
so that's a no?
Something that I've refuted for years, and I continue to do that. So it's a no. What I would tell you is,
we can move on.
Hold on, what you're doing,
we can move on. I'm not going to belabor it.
This is what you do.
Hold on,
I'm
not doing anything.
Liberal left.
Okay.
Is you go off and you attack conservative women, and you say that we're either stupid
I haven't said
or we're
anything.
sluts.
All right, so listen.
And that's what you do.
Yesterday, Richard, reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, reclaiming my time. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday if Corey was involved in approving contracts. You said no. Do you want to correct that?
What I would say is that he has an advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, has no decision-making authority.
Madam Secretary, do you want to correct it, yes or no? You don't want to correct it? Fine.
No decision-making authority, no role in
Not a problem. According to one of the FEMA administrators that you fired, there is nothing, including contracts, that is brought to you that he hasn't reviewed. In fact, a significant amount of DHS internal routing documents has his signature on it above deputy secretaries. Okay, that former FEMA administrator wasn't fired by you, the secretary. He was fired by Corey. It was Corey that called him into your office. It was Corey that made him to submit to a polygraph test. The $100,000 spending rule that you created that comes to your desk, you're not even sitting at your desk. It's Corey who's sitting there. ISIS said the Republicans should be happy at the job that you're doing. Really? You're looking at the person who single-handedly took the president's signature core issue, immigration, the issue that got him elected from 59% to 39%. 200 miles of border walls being held up by you. They had to bring in Tom Homan, pull out of Minnesota. I think the country needs a national divorce from you on biblical grounds. I mean, if Donald Trump was still apprentice Trump, he would look at you and he would realize you're the weakest cabinet member and he would fire you. And if the president said to you that only way DHS could reopen is if you resigned, I hope you would take him up on it. Now, I want to end on a happy note, Mr. Chairman, real quickly. The president gave all sorts of stuff out during the State of the Union. I don't want you to leave. I got you a new Coast Guard blankie, the one you lost. Okay, so this is for you. You don't leave empty-handed when you come to Judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Okay, let's talk about what just happened. Because Jared Moskowitz didn't just show up to this hearing with talking points. He showed up with receipts. A 122-page report that has never been seen in public before. And what he laid out point by point is one of the most damning indictments of a sitting cabinet secretary I have seen in a long time. Let's start with who Moskowitz is. This is not a career politician throwing partisan attacks. This is the former director of emergency management for the state of Florida under a Republican governor. He ran the COVID response for Florida. He worked directly with the Trump FEMA administration during Hurricane Michael recovery. He knows exactly what good FEMA leadership looks like. And he just told Kristi Noem to her face that she has done the opposite of everything. Let's go through the list, because Moskowitz didn't give one example. He gave 10.
The largest FEMA backlog in the history of the agency. Florida alone is owed $2.5 billion, sitting there, unreimbursed, while disaster victims wait. FEMA disaster declarations delayed even when applicants meet the legal threshold under the Stafford Act. Empty regional offices across the country. A rule that anything over $100,000 has to come to Noem's desk. A rule that has single-handedly slowed down FEMA reimbursement and disaster response across the board. And then Moskowitz delivered the line that should be the headline everywhere. You want states to do more, yet you want to cut the EMPG program, the exact program that funds states' ability to build disaster response capacity. You want them to do more with less. And then there's Texas. When the floods hit, FEMA's urban search and rescue crews were not put on the road for 72 hours. 72 hours, when people were drowning. Days later, the FEMA urban search and rescue chief resigned in protest. That is not a bureaucratic failure.
That is a human cost. But the most damning moment of the entire hearing was the report. Moskowitz held it up, 122 pages, written by governors who had been through disasters, by emergency management directors, by FEMA experts, by national security professionals, people who actually know what they're talking about. And then Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski took that report and turned it into 23 pages. They cut out everything, every recommendation, every finding, every piece of expertise from the people who actually lived through disasters, gone. And that's why the report has never been released. It's sitting in the White House right now because nobody wants the American public to see what was taken out. And then there's Lewandowski. Noem called him a special government employee. She said he has no decision-making authority. But according to a former FEMA administrator, someone Noem fired, there is nothing, including contracts, that comes to Noem that he hasn't reviewed first. His signature is on DHS internal routing documents above deputy secretaries. And when that FEMA administrator was fired, it wasn't Noem who called him in, it was Corey. It was Corey who made him submit to a polygraph test. So who is actually running DHS?
Moskowitz said it perfectly. You're not even sitting at your desk. Corey is. And then the immigration numbers. Trump's signature issue, the issue that got him elected. Under Noem's leadership, approval on immigration has dropped from 59% to 39%. 200 miles of border wall being held up. Tom Homan had to be pulled out of Minnesota to clean up the mess. The one thing Trump voters cared about most, and Noem has made it worse. Noem's only defense was to accuse Moskowitz of attacking conservative women. That's it. No answer on the FEMA backlog, no answer on the 72-hour delay in Texas, no answer on the 122 pages cut to 23, no answer on Lewandowski's signature on internal documents, just, you're attacking conservative women. And Moskowitz didn't even blink. He reclaimed his time, kept going, and ended by handing her a Coast Guard blanket, a reference to the blanket that was allegedly lost and led to a pilot being fired, and told her she doesn't leave empty-handed when she comes to judiciary. That is how you hold a cabinet secretary accountable, with facts, with documents, with receipts, and apparently with a blanket.